Alright, small update this week. 4 things. One of them is actually an old release that I guess I was tracking. There it is right there. Which I don't think I got. I still had a tab open letting me know to look for it, but these Media Blasters releases can sometimes, I guess, be a little bit hard to keep track of when they come out. I think I had a couple of hentai last week or the week before like that. Anyways, this is Yamibo, which is a very strange series. I can already feel that plastic is not going to give way to the thumbnail. But yeah, Yamibo, which I'm pretty sure I don't already have on Blu-ray, but now I do. And I can't say it's necessarily good, but it was strange. I remember it being very strange. And the other interesting thing about it was you had this this lesbian relationship, this Yuri relationship between a black-haired girl and a blonde-haired girl like this. And around the time that I watched this, there was another anime that came out at the time. But anyways, oh, was this 13 episodes? Interesting. Well, that other one was a weird mecha one of some sort. Some mecha magical girl thing. I see region A, 16 and older. Oops. English slates? Well, Japanese with English subtitles only. And I wonder... I feel like this was closer to the era of when Media Blasters were doing a lot of press burn-on-demand discs, but I don't know. Interesting. Now we've got the new releases. The Girl from the Other Side, which I know is added to my list of things to regions A and B. Okay. 3 OVAs, yeah. Audio. There's English and Japanese, I see. My list of things that I'm definitely curious about. But I never did quite watch this, and the plastic's just coming apart, really quite annoyingly. Mostly because it's sticking to the side here. Ugh. See, this came off, but there's still a bit of plastic there. There may still be something there. I'm not sure. But, you know, on 3 episodes, 1 disc, it's about expected. So that's a bigger version of the image on the disc itself. But yeah, neat release. I didn't even realize this plastic was there. Next up, Call of the Night, which I do believe was fairly well regarded at the time it came out or was airing, and is still kind of sort of on the radar a little bit. What's love got to do with it? So I am definitely still curious about it, but I just keep not, you know, putting time into it. So I guess looking in the back, I see region A. There's our audio. So we've got English dub and Japanese with English subtitles. Lost Time karaoke version. Interesting. Disc 1. Disc 2. And then last but not least, we have Shinobi no Ittoki, the complete season. I guess actually we'll go here. It's been nice that the 2 slipcovers have been nice. Alright, and now taking a peek at the back, here I see regions A and B. Audio, I see an English dub and a German dub. You know, that's that AB thing. French subs, but no French dub. It's interesting. Not really sure what it's about. It looks like it could be neat. Interesting there. Alright. Well, looks like none of the DVDs hidden in here this time, so here's this week's Blu-ray collection update. Alright. Let's start going through the list of stuff I watched. I think it's pretty much stuff you'd already expect. I didn't realize I added a new line there on accident. So to begin with, you know, at the top of my list, watching with my Friday friend, we essentially completed season 1 of Jobless Reincarnation dubbed. So I guess we ended up watching a good handful of episodes. So next time we watch, we're actually going to watch One Piece, but that's going to actually be a couple weeks out because he's, you know, traveling. You know, he likes to travel, so, you know, when you don't hear me talking about the Friday friend stuff, it's usually because he's traveling, and it's good that he enjoys it and he's doing it because he's doing it enough for the both of us. And I'm not a big fan of traveling, but blah blah blah. Jobless Reincarnation dubbed. You know, I did forget the immediate follow-up to some of the stuff there, but I was quite surprised at how quickly it moved towards the end, even though, you know, it was still 23 episodes to get from where it began to where it ended. But maybe at the time I had rewatched a lot of stuff, I had remembered more along the way than I had thought. But at the same time, I remember it feeling a lot longer, like twice as long or something like that. So, you know, it's a good amount of content in that first season. Now, technically, I didn't watch episode 24, which is actually not a continuation from episode 23. It's an episode that they released a couple of months, half a year-ish after the first season ended. That just kind of was, you know, go back to watching a character do something on the side. But, you know, it's some real somber stuff that happened in there. And, you know, I guess I'm just kind of wondering what I feel like season 2 is going to be, because I do feel like season 2's done a lot of neat things. Like, it began a little rough, but then it started doing stuff that just, like, I don't know, feels like it's building on top of stuff. But at the same time, given how fast season 1 moved, season 2 kind of feels relatively slow, even though I'm not sure if it necessarily is. But I guess it's because season 1 had a lot of big events that you could call milestones, whereas season 2, I guess, sort of feels like it's building something. And maybe the latest episode is kind of hints as to, yeah, it feels like it's building something, because this episode felt like a bit of a setup episode, setting up certain ideas, setting up certain events to happen, and I guess I'm kind of curious what's about to happen after this point, because, you know, I wouldn't call this episode like the most exciting individual episode, but a pretty good setup episode if you've been enjoying what season 2 has been going for so far. So, yeah, definitely interested. Hulk, episode 9. Not a bad episode. I guess it's just kind of, I thought there was a main story idea being set up, but it felt like episode 9 was, well, doing great stuff, because we definitely want to see Hulk and from management. You know, they're the heart of the series as far as I'm concerned. But the stuff they were dealing with, it didn't seem immediately obvious that it was necessarily related to all the other big stuff that was happening. Good stuff to just kind of see them, and they were really neat doing it. So I guess just sort of missing maybe that feeling of, is this all going to be, how is this all going to tie together to be relevant? And, you know, to be fair, let's see, it's episode 9, and I'm trying to remember if I saw Hulk on the list of stuff for fall, because if I did, then that means it's definitely at least a 2-core, if not longer. But, you know, it's stuff. Oh, an okay episode. Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, episode 21. Some entertaining follow-up from the previous episode, and some good setup for whatever it's planning to do for probably the remainder of the series, I would guess, because I feel like it doesn't feel like a core finale, because obviously it's gone for longer than one core. It doesn't feel like a season finale, so I almost feel like they may be going for something bigger, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to turn out. So, been enjoying it, looking forward. Reborn as a Vending Machine, I Now Wandered the Dungeon, episode 10. What even happened in this episode? Okay. Just another simple series, doesn't really have a direction sort of episode, and so maybe an okay episode for Reborn as a Vending Machine. But, if... Yeah, I don't know. Undead Murder Farce, episode 10. Let's see. I wish I could say I remember absolutely everything in perfect detail. And while I remember some of the things that happened in episode 10, I'm trying to remember if I can remember my feelings more. Because I feel like that's probably slightly more relevant to this than some sort of, I can spit out facts. It's more like, how did I feel about watching the episode? Which I thought it was nice. Did they do a thing? I guess they did do that thing. So there's a little bit of the characters shining in the way that we want them to, and I guess just mostly a question of where it's going to go at the end of the core or season or whatever, because we're getting close to that. It could be something big. It's hard to tell if it'd be something that feels like it covers important things across the entire story. I don't know. The Great Cleric, episode 10. I guess it's kind of interesting because some of the stuff that's going on here feels like it's more relevant to what we've been feeling as we've gone through the series. Did they try to set something up at the end? I'm trying to remember exactly what happened at the end. I'm blanking a little bit. But I was just trying to remember if they were trying to set something up as a sort of season finale or core break or something like that. They might have been. But I don't know. I guess we're starting to see our character do stuff that's actually kind of nice for the general theme of it. The Most Heretical Last Boss Queen, From Villainess to Savior, episode 10. I guess some pretty entertaining stuff to watch. The very end was setting something up related to the main story. And this one had some stuff that was kind of nice follow-up to the previous stuff. I mentioned the previous episode did make me get a little teary-eyed. It had its niceness. And this one had neat moments to it. I'm trying to think if they felt right. Maybe not the best of those things, but, some of that stuff is more the unique flavoring of this, and at the end of the day, it is still essentially a shoujo. So, shoujo elements still seem to be pretty nice. Rurouni Kenshin 2023, episode 10. Entertaining enough. I guess if there's anything I don't like about what it's setting up, it's how a lot of these shows, and I guess I'm trying to clarify what I mean by these shows, like shonen anime, especially maybe shonen-esque or shonen-leaning shows of that time, tend to set up here's a series of battles, and I don't know. To me, that trope kind of hurts a little bit, because it feels like it's like, okay, it went from having this thing to no, they're in some sort of tournament, and I guess I'm talking a little bit about Yu Yu Hakusho there, because that one comes to mind where it's just like, oh yeah, they were doing stuff, and then all of a sudden they're in a tournament and they're just fighting one guy and then the next guy and then the next guy and then the next guy. And it's like, I guess it's a common thing they do, but at the same time, I guess it feels like it breaks my own personal immersion just a little bit.
nothing bad, but it's could be a weakness, I think. It could also be a strength. Next up, Reign of the Seven Spellblades, episode 10. Do I have any specific feeling about what's going on here? I'm not sure. There's definitely an element of the show that's very meandering, and this is just what they happen to be doing next. And it's entertaining stuff. It's not bad to watch per se. I just wonder if it's what exactly it's missing, and maybe I do have ideas of what that is, and I just don't know if I want to say it because maybe it's a little more spoiler than I want to say. I don't know. Like I try again. I'm trying to talk about my emotions, and some of these shows are just like I am mostly watching the next episode, and I'm not necessarily excited by them per se. Like, my unique skill makes me OP even at level 1, episode 10. Oh, they introduced another new character, which, we've kind of been expecting. I'm not sure what to think about them because I don't know. I guess because it's not like it's only the only show that's like this. I mean, I rewatched Black Summoner, and it's totally like this, where it's like it almost feels like everything is just set up for our main character, just kind of happily go along and build up a life, a party, a harem, or whatever you want to call it. And obviously this one is kind of along those lines, but I felt Black Summoner worked better for some reason. Maybe it's because the conflict in this one is just not that strong, possibly. I'm trying to think if they were setting anything up at the end of this episode that would be a lead into like a finale of some sort. Misfit of Demon King Academy, Season 2, Episode 10. I mean, this one is clearly setting up for finales and final confrontations with all the stuff set up in Season 2, and so far, neat stuff. I guess I'm just waiting to see as it gets closer to the finale, as it goes from neat stuff to awesome stuff, because that's something that show tends to do. Am I actually the strongest? Episode 9. So I guess if I've described something like Reign of the Seven Spellblades as meandery, I think I would call Am I Actually the Strongest just more running around. I was gonna say like a chicken with its head cut off, but it's not that bad. But it's still one of those things where it's just like, what are we supposed to be thinking about any of these memes? What are you trying to do, show? It just seems to be trying to do this here, that there, a little bit of back and forth. It's hard to say how much of the stuff that it's done is relevant or not. Maybe not irrelevant, but just sort of, I don't know. Like, I guess it's setting up for us to see potential interactions, but it's not doing certain interactions and setting other things up, but it's like, but instead of giving us the interaction we would have expected or been curious about, it gives us another one where it's just like, okay, yeah, why did we want to see some creep telling her to undress for no reason? Maybe not exactly for no reason from his perspective, but for all intents and purposes, for no reason. And it's like stuff, I don't know, not necessarily bad, but just not leaving a strong impression, I guess. Classroom for Heroes, episode 10. This episode I felt was a little bit at risk of being another one of those episodes that feels like it's more about the characters and about the theme, but I think that's mostly because after so many episodes exactly like that, even though this one began with something that's like, okay, this seems to be something that's actually based on the theme. It almost felt like it was maybe almost accidentally getting too far from it, but overall the episode was a nice episode because it still kept to the main theme of the anime. So, good for it. I don't know if it was setting up anything for finale. Again, a lot of the stuff we have to start thinking about that. Dark Gathering, episode 10. Now, this one I know is going to go on for a second core. But, definitely interesting follow-on from the stuff from the previous episode. Like I mentioned, one of the big risks you have to deal with in terms of what was I just thinking? Like, it kind of introduced a new character slightly recently. I'm like, so what purpose does this character serve? And right now, it's still a slightly weak purpose. In particular, they seem to be setting up a kind of journey goal sort of thing for our characters, instead of like a, okay, well, this episode's continuing from the previous one. Well, now there's like something to specifically target, I guess. More than a forward direction, but maybe a specific destination. Something that seemed like it was a little bit present, but maybe without, I guess, clear goal, but definitely facing forward. But now it's like, okay, yeah, it's the setting up something else slightly bigger. And the new character doesn't seem to be directly involved with the things that they're going to be doing as in the immediate. So I guess it's mostly a question of how does it feel as it gets into that, because it almost feels like it's entering a notable but also slight shift in the way it's going in. It's entertaining enough. Zom 100 episode 8 has been delayed. I guess it's no surprise. You know, I think they are maybe having to do a lot to produce the individual episodes, and you know, if they keep not making deadlines, well, I think it's better to let a good product come out than to rush it. So hopefully they'll be good. Hopefully episode 8 will be good, because like I said, episode 7 I feel got it back on the right track, even though episode 6 didn't feel like it necessarily went off the right track, but wobbled enough where it's just like, maybe you didn't feel comfortable. I know I didn't, but yeah. Sweet Reincarnation episode 12, which I think is a season or series. It doesn't need to be the series finale, it could be the season finale. I was a little bit worried watching this episode, mostly because it started going in a direction that was interesting and thoughtful, and it almost felt like the way it was trying to have it handled while staying within the general theme of the show would have almost been actually insulting. So they try to find line there, but I felt like it was handled a little bit better than I was afraid. Whether or not it's like the best way to have handled that stuff, I don't know. It feels like the show kind of tried to shoehorn in its central premise a little bit. But I think it works out okay. And if that's a series finale, then that's, you know, I can't help but think that we need more series. But if it's a season finale, then I guess it's okay. If it's a core finale or core break, it's okay, I guess. If there's one more episode, I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I don't know. It feels like it could be the kind of episode that nothing really happens. So like a side episode of some sort for some reason. Guess we'll have to find out, because, you know, I haven't paid attention to how many episodes of all these things they're supposed to be. Then, last but not least, we have Level 1 Demon Lord and One Room Hero, episode 11. This one was another one I was a little bit worried about. It wasn't very, like, the main story stuff that they had going on was a little bit separated from the, I guess from the heartwarming feeling of some parts of the show. And I was a bit worried that, okay, maybe it's getting too distracted in something when I clearly have opinions on some of the stuff that's going on, but it's definitely, I don't know. But I'd say that where it went to after all that stuff was definitely a very, oh, that's an interesting and kind of heartwarming way for it to go. So, you know, overall, I guess an interesting end to that episode. I think there's one more episode in the series. You know, unlike a lot of these others where I'm guessing, I can just tell you that there's an episode 12 slot for this on a high dive, so I just know that it's there. So I guess I'm kind of curious where it's going to go from here, because it's set itself up for a kind of heartwarming final episode, possibly. we'll just have to see what happens. And I don't know if there's more seasons after this one, but I could see it being a season finale as well. A series finale, I mean. It really depends on what they're doing, so I guess I'm curious about the next episode. Alright. So outside of that... Okay, so I guess I did quickly thumb through a couple of anime. I don't remember if last week I talked about what's it called? Sorry, brain is blanking. Why am I forgetting the name of the anime? Well, it's one of the anime for which there's a season 2. The something's power is overwhelming is great. So something big. The saint's powers is overwhelming or something like that. And if I didn't mention it last week, I did thumb through it again, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a very shoujo sort of show. Which, actually I think it's kind of fine in that regard. Definitely curious where it's going to go from season 2, but I'm not sure if I've got a very clear idea in my head what I would expect from the series. So hopefully season 2, when that starts in a couple of weeks, I think, hopefully that will get off to a good start. And along those lines, I was like, oh yes, and there's season 2 of The Faraway Paladin also coming out starting fall, if I'm not mistaken. So I thumbed through that again. I'm like, oh yeah, some of the stuff that was... So that scene was neat. I remember really liking this one character that's just like, okay, he's set up as your very stereotypical scumbag, but the show actually gave a really deep analysis on him on why he felt like that, but you shouldn't think of him like that per se. And I remember liking that. I don't remember if I mentioned at the time, but I do kind of appreciate the fact that the main character, that the person that they meet with and spend a lot of time with is not just some girl, so it's not some romantic fantasy at the same time. It really is, just telling its own story. Definitely touching moments in there. What would I expect from a season 2? I'm not sure about that one either, because this one... Yeah, I could say if it wasn't rated that well, I think part of it is that it definitely kind of has a slow, not necessarily bad, but slow beginning, and I guess maybe not entirely good idea on what direction it would specifically go, so people might not latch onto it as easily, and I can't really blame them for a lot of that stuff. But where it ended at season 2, it's like, okay, or well, where it ended at season 1 and what it would be going into with the second season, I'm definitely kind of curious about, because it doesn't feel like it has a final destination, maybe just a kind of forward goal and kind of something that's building up, but I don't know, I guess it sort of felt like it could have very easily felt like it built up to maybe being stuck from a story perspective. And I say maybe because it didn't feel actually stuck. I'm just kind of saying I kind of felt something sort of like that, but it might not be. It might not be so bad. I don't know. Definitely curious. And eyeing some other stuff to maybe go back to and watch, I think. But I can't think of what those are. And obviously I keep looking to the left at the list of stuff that there's nothing to really read there. Do I have anything else really worth mentioning? Dead by Daylight's Dead by Daylight. I mean, the people I went against today, there was at least 2 really questionable people. And I don't mean, like, questionable, oh, are they cheating or something? I mean, questionable as in, like, do they have more than 2 brain cells? One of them was a person who, like, just said in the match, easy, and it's just like, yeah, I was definitely playing as a killer that's not trying to guard gens, not trying to hook somebody twice. I had some really weird goals, which included, finding certain people and no longer committing to chases people that met certain criteria. It's like, and you know, if you don't see that, that's fine. But when you are too small-brained that you don't know that you didn't see that, but you still have a big mouth, it's just like, what the fucking hell? And in the next one, somebody just said, I'm going to report you, and I don't know for fucking what. And it's really strange because of the people, of the 8 people in those 2 games, that's the one person I would have thought had spent the most time in this game and wouldn't be that dumb, because they actually knew how to loop, or at least attempt to loop. I would say that, you know, their looping was slightly more successful than otherwise, but beyond that, there's nothing to report. It was the same damn thing, where it's like, yeah, everybody got hooked once. At this point, I'm just, you know, goofing off and doing silly things. And maybe they don't notice it's silly, but it's like, I don't know. It's bothering me more than it really should. But, you know, there's always some dumbass wrong on the internet, so what can you do? The answer should be prepare for the upcoming Pokemon Scarlet Violet DLC, which I do believe comes out maybe 24 hours from now. I'm not sure. I think the guess is it's late in the day on September, early in the day... late in the day on Tuesday here in the States, early in the morning on the 13th on Wednesday in Japan. You know, time zone craziness. And we'll have to find out. I do think I want to try to play it. I'm, I think, in a good state to try. But, we'll also have to see where my motivation is. Maybe I don't need much motivation. I do know that I've talked with a friend and they're like offering to get me a Snivy, and you know, the idea of contrary superior was kind of neat. But now that I look, the only advantage would be a faster speed, maybe ever so slightly more bulk compared to contrary Lurantis. But surprisingly, Lurantis has a higher special attack, so it's like, okay. Maybe there's still a reason to attempt superior. Definitely something to think about, but Lurantis is great. And what am I doing for a said friend? Well, I'm definitely planning on helping them get Scarlet Paradox Pokemon. But that's a simple thing. Anyways, as you can see, my talking is kind of trailed off to kind of meandering old man speak. So hopefully y'all have enjoyed this conversation. Y'all have a nice week. And, yeah, have a nice week.